What if I told you that your arms, your legs, your lungs, and your completely unjustified confidence in hiking, all of it exists because one fish looked at the ocean and said, "No thanks." That's right. Before birds took to the skies, before mammals ran the savannah, before humans figured out how to stand up, fall down, and blame gravity, fish were already making moves. They didn't just evolve, they evacuated. Before we start throwing evolutionary shade, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell. Because this story is going to be wetter than your last pool party and twice as dramatic. Let's rewind about 500 million years. Earth is mostly ocean. There's no grass, no trees, no land animals, just water and weird vibes. The ocean was warm-ish, rich in minerals. Crawling with microbes, invertebrates, and jelly blobs. A buffet for anything with a mouth, it was the ultimate convenience store. Need nutrients? It's in the water. Want mobility? Just swim. Don't like gravity? Good news, it barely applies here. Honestly, life had it pretty easy, which makes what happened next all the more ridiculous. The first real vertebrates were fish. They were cartilaginous-eyed, jawless at first because life is unfair, but quick to adapt. Soon, fish diversified. Armored fish because drama, bony fish because bones are awesome, sharks because there had to be jerks. These fish ruled the ocean for millions of years, but something started to shift. Resources became patchy, predators got tougher, some tidal zones were drying up, and some fish looked up at the shore and thought, what if we tried that? Quick reminder, land is terrible. It's dry, unforgiving gravity. Heavy, lacking in floating food, covered in UV radiation and sharp rocks. No gills, no buoyancy, no break. So why did any fish ever leave? 3 words: selective evolutionary pressure. In other words, if you were a fish living in shallow, oxygen-poor water during a drought, and you had weird little fins that could prop you up, you had a chance to flop to safety. And survival, even the floppy, clumsy kind, is sexy to evolution. Around 375 million years ago, a truly iconic fish emerged, Tiktaalik. Tiktaalik was basically a fish that had gills and lungs. It was hedging its bets. Fins with wrist-like bones. What? A neck. Fish don't normally have necks. Eyes on top of its head, good for shallow water peeking. It couldn't fully walk, but it could push itself up, look around, and possibly crawl short distances. It was like a soggy, evolutionary prototype for a salamander, if that salamander also had a midlife crisis and considered real estate on land. And it left fossils so iconic, scientists literally threw parties when they found them. Here's where things get weird. As some fish kept crawling onto land, their fins began to change. What used to be fan-like paddles for swimming became lobed, muscular limbs. Over time, those lobes grew. Stronger bones, jointed segments. Digits, yes, fingers and toes. The ocean's flippers turned into the first legs. Nature just kept duct taping things together until it worked. This transition gave rise to the tetrapods, 4-limbed animals, and eventually, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals. And that guy at the gym who skips leg day but still owes it all to fish water has dissolved oxygen. Air has more. But your gills? Useless on land. So early landfish needed a new system. Some evolved primitive lungs, just swim bladders repurposed into air sacs. A classic DIY job from nature. Others relied on skin breathing, gross but effective. And amphibians today still use a combo approach. The point is, breathing air wasn't natural. Fish forced it to happen. Because when evolution knocks, you either adapt or become a trivia question in a paleontology textbook. So let's say you're a proto-amphibian. You've just crawled out of a swamp. Your fins are sort of legs. You're blinking at the sun like a gamer seeing daylight. And land? Land is a mess. Gravity suddenly matters. There's no water holding you up. Everything feels like sandpaper. Your skin is drying out like week-old toast. You can't swim to escape predators anymore. They walk now too. The ocean gave you buoyancy. Land gave you sore joints and self-doubt. Congratulations, you're now evolution's first physical therapy patient. You don't realize how much you love water until you leave it. In water, you're weightless agile. Graceful, kind of. On land, you're a soggy meat tube collapsing under your own weight. That's why early land animals developed. Thicker bones, stronger muscles, pelvic girdles, your butt thanks evolution. Better balance systems, inner ear upgrades. Imagine strapping on a backpack filled with bricks and trying to walk on hot sand. That's day one of terrestrial life. Fish didn't just adapt. They engineered a body plan from scratch, mid-move. Here's the thing. Early land animals could walk, crawl, and wheeze their way across dirt. But they still had to lay their eggs in water. Why? Because their eggs were basically gelatinous blobs, vulnerable to drying out UV radiation, hungry insects, mild inconveniences. So even if your adult form was land-capable, your babies were still ocean-minded. This is why amphibians today, frogs, toads, salamanders, still breed in water. Keep their skin moist, look vaguely embarrassed about it until someone solved this. Sometime later, evolution struck gold, the amniotic egg. This innovation had a watertight shell, created its own liquid environment inside, protected the embryo from dryness, included nutrients, waste removal, and breathing systems. Basically, it was the Uber Eats of eggs. Everything the embryo needed delivered in one biodegradable shell. With it, animals could fully commit to land. No more awkward trips back to the pond, no more tadpole phase. Just hatch and hustle. This gave rise to reptiles, then birds, then mammals. And eventually you, reading this while holding your breath, possibly from respect. The first true land vertebrates were amphibians, and they were trying their best. They had semi-legs, half-decent lungs, moist skin that always needed hydration. A look of constant confusion. They became the first real predators on land, snapping up insects, worms. Basically anything small and slow and not paying attention. But amphibians never fully let go of the water. They were like those people who move into a new city but still drive 2 hours home every weekend. Let's pause. Why are we giving fish all the glory here? Because they had the first skeletons invented the jaw, yes, even yours, built the backbone blueprint, took the first wobbly step onto land, birthed every tetrapod lineage, including amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, you. Without fish, your family tree would stop at goo. Every vertebrate land animal is basically a fish that made some wild lifestyle choices. And we owe them everything. Including that weird way your knees bend? Fish. The hiccup reflex? Fish gill DNA. They're still in your genome, throwing shade from 375 million years ago. Once the amniotic egg showed up, reptiles were like, great, no more swamp babysitting. Time to conquer stuff. They evolved scaly skin to keep moisture in fully terrestrial lungs, powerful limbs for walking, climbing, or doing dramatic slow turns in documentaries. Reptiles could now thrive in places amphibians feared to flop. Deserts, rocky cliffs, and drama-heavy mountaintops. This gave them a massive evolutionary edge. And it all started with fish bones, modified fins, upgraded eggs. And the bold idea, what if we dry out on purpose? Let's be clear, dinosaurs were tetrapods. Tetrapods came from fish. That means dinosaurs were, in a very strange but literal sense, just extra-large fish with better publicists. They stomped continents, grew feathers, invented drama poses, turned eating leaves into an Olympic sport, and in some cases, never really left. Because yes, birds are dinosaurs, and therefore, your backyard pigeon is just a loud fish with wings. Chew on that next time one steals your fries. When dinosaurs ran the world, early mammals stayed small, quiet, and probably terrified. But they were still tetrapods, still landfish, still evolving weird ideas like fur milk, warm blood, live births. Eventually, when the asteroid hit and dinosaurs rage quit the Mesozoic, mammals stepped up. They became wolves, whales, primates, platypuses, and humans. We like to think of mammals as the peak, but we're really just a fish experiment that got emotional. Not all fish bailed. Some stayed in the ocean and just kept winning. Sharks. Ancient, efficient, zero chill. Ray-finned fish made up 99% of modern species. Lungfish never got over land, but didn't fully commit coelacanths. Literally thought extinct for 65 million years, then just showed up again like, what? Some of these fish developed crazy adaptations. Electricity, anti-freeze blood, built-in lights, deep-sea crush resistance. So yes, Seki, while tetrapods were figuring out walking and mortgages, some fish were perfecting biological superpowers. You are walking fish architecture. Proof? Your spine, from fish vertebrae. Your limbs, modified fins. Your ears, evolved from fish jawbones. Your cranial nerves, fish leftovers. Your hiccups, a gift from amphibian gill control. You're basically a bony fish that's been tricked into filing taxes. Even your embryo looks like a little tadpole at one point, with gill slits. Evolution never deletes, it just repurposes and preys. Fish today might not rule the land, but they dominate in sheer diversity and attitude. There are fish that fly, fish that climb trees, fish that walk on mudflats, fish that fake being dead, fish that change gender, fish that farm algae, fish that hold grudges, see, rasa, cichlids. They don't want to be us. They never did. They just look at us, wrapped in clothes, wheezing at the gym, and think, we told you land was dumb. Here's the plot twist nobody saw coming. After millions of years perfecting life on land, some tetrapods looked back at the water and thought, you know what? I miss floating. So they went back. Seriously. After all that effort, lungs, limbs, dry skin, the whole evolutionary IKEA project, some of our distant cousins said, nah, I like the soggy life. Thus began the great re-entry. Whales, giant ex-land mammals that turned back into swimmers. Seals, halfway house for evolutionary indecision. Manatees, gentle floaty potatoes. Penguins, birds that forgot how to fly but doubled down on swimming. They kept lungs, they kept air breathing, but they redesigned everything else. Nature was like, okay, let's undo 200 million years of walking, again. Whales are possibly the most dramatic return to water story ever told. They descended from hoofed land mammals, slowly adapted fins, tails, blowholes, lost their back legs mostly, and grew to the size of school buses, for no reason except vibes. Whales didn't just return to water, they dominated it. Baleen whales filter tons of krill per day. Sperm whales dive kilometers down. Blue whales are literally the largest animals in Earth's history. Fish left the ocean to find freedom. Whales went back and got buffet privileges. You, dear viewer, are 60% water and 100% overconfident. You still cry salt float awkwardly, have ears that pop with pressure, show mild panic if dropped into the deep end. Yet humans, once fish, now bipeds, build cities, light fires, and act like they're not aquatic exiles. We swim for fun. We scuba dive to peek at our old neighborhood. We make aquariums to stare at our evolutionary cousins behind glass. And every summer, we migrate toward the beach like confused salmon. Why? Because some part of us remembers, even if we've replaced fins with flip-flops. Nature's full of animals who sort of return to water but never fully committed. Beavers, aquatic engineers but still land homeowners otters. Swim champs who nap in kelp frogs. The original two-timers capybaras. Giant rodents who chill in pools like retirees in Miami. These creatures thrive in the in-between. Not fully fish, not fully landlocked. They're evolutionary diplomats. Ambassadors of soggy compromise, the Switzerland of biology. And they do just fine, because returning to the water doesn't mean failure, it means options. You can't scroll 2 minutes on social media without seeing mermaid art, ocean-themed decor, return to sea. Quotes, sea salt, everything. Dolphin tattoos, ASMR, ocean waves. Humans are land-dwelling mammals who are weirdly obsessed with water. Why? Because we come from it. And part of us never truly left. Our myths echo it. Atlantis sea gods, leviathans, underwater civilizations, rebirth through water. Even baptism, hot tubs, and crying in the shower. All part of the wet nostalgia package. Let's get serious, but not too serious. Without fish, life on Earth collapses faster than your Wi-Fi during a Zoom call. Fish are keystone species, nutrient cyclers. Food for everything from penguins to people, plankton managers, that's climate level importance. Ocean lawnmowers keeping ecosystems balanced. They're the blue-collar workers of the biosphere. No spotlight, just holding the whole thing together. Coral reefs run on fish poop. Sharks, fish-powered, seabirds, fish-fed. You? Probably eating sushi at least once a month. Take fish away and the ocean becomes an underwater parking lot. Ever wonder why deep sea fish look like something you'd design in a fever dream? Because they live in zero light extreme pressure, freezing cold, a buffet of nothing. So they adapted. Glowing lures like horror movie fishing rods, transparent heads, jaws that unhinge like a horror hinge head, expandable stomachs for the once-a-year meal plan. Gender fusion, some males fuse to females. Permanently. The deep sea is where evolution threw out the rulebook and just said, surprise me. And fish said, bet. Fish don't just swim, they engineer. And humans, as usual, copied everything. Streamlined bodies, submarine and aircraft design lateral line sensing, sonar technology, swarming behavior, drone AI movement, slippery mucus coatings, anti-fouling ship paint, color-changing skin, adaptive camouflage materials. Even your electric toothbrush owes a nod to the electric eel. Nature's R&D department runs through the reef, and fish are the unpaid interns we plagiarize from. Unfortunately, we're not the best roommates. Fish face. Overfishing, bycatch waste plastic pollution, acidifying oceans rising temps, coral bleaching habitat loss, we're turning the oceans into a giant lukewarm trash smoothie. And the fish. The ones who bailed on water 375 million years ago and let us inherit the Earth, might not get the chance to survive us unless we protect reefs, regulate catch limits, fix runoff, stop treating oceans like dishwater, because we need fish way more than they need us. They've already survived 5 mass extinctions. If we go, they'll just blink slowly and say, again? Fish aren't just food or fossils. They're sacred in mythology, Hello Koi, Leviathan, and Jonah's Airbnb incident. Foundational in zodiac and religion, Pisces, Ichthus, Dagon. Inspiring in art, from ancient cave paintings to surreal tattoos. Subjects in evolution debates, Darwin versus dinosaurs versus Sunday school. Iconic in media, Finding Nemo anyone? Fish are ancient metaphors, change flow fertility mystery. Memory and honestly, we might remember them better than we understand them. So let's summarize. Fish were first. They invented skeletons, designed jaws, took a chance on land, started every animal lineage you know, powered ecosystems, inspired technology, went deep, weird, and ancient, got insulted by humans who forgot their roots. And yet, they keep swimming. If humanity vanishes, fish will be fine. They'll just keep glowing in the dark, floating past sunken cities, whispering, "Told you land was overrated." Evolution doesn't always go in straight lines. Sometimes it zigzags into chaos and leaves behind glorious failures. Let's take a moment to salute some of the weirdest aquatic residents to ever exist. Dunkleosteus, a prehistoric armor-plated murder torpedo with no real teeth, just bony blades that crush sharks. It headbutted its way into history. Helicoprion, a fish with a spiral saw of teeth where its lower jaw should be. Imagine a buzzsaw mouth that even nature was like, wait, did I approve this? Stethecanthus, a shark with an anvil-shaped growth on its back that probably looked cooler than it functioned. It was the aquatic equivalent of wearing a hat no one understands. Anomalocaris, technically pre-fish, but it swam like a shrimp and hugged its prey to death with weird noodle appendages. Terror of the Cambrian, now a plush toy. These fish didn't always survive long, but they made a statement. They were the concept cars of evolution. Flashy, over-engineered, and kind of terrifying. Some fish tried to make the leap to land, and failed. Not because they were lazy, they just got unlucky. Lungfish evolved lungs and legs, but never fully moved out. Still living in swamps, waiting for a better lease. Coelacanths, ancient lobe-finned fish that were presumed extinct for 65 million years until someone caught one like, oh, hi. Tiktaalik's cousins. Many transitional species popped up, wiggled on some rocks, and fizzled out before they made history textbooks. And yet, without those experiments, you wouldn't exist. Evolution throws 1,000 darts at the wall and keeps the two that sort of stick. You're a winning dart, a very squishy land-walking dart. While everyone else evolved lungs, legs, or weird haircuts, some fish just stayed the same. And they're still around, like evolutionary grandparents who refuse to upgrade their flip phones. Sharks, 400+ million years old, still biting, still smug. Sturgeons, ancient armored bottom feeders that look like leftover boss characters. Hagfish, jawless, slime-spewing tubes that are technically vertebrates but also nightmares. Lampreys, living suction cups with teeth that feed by drilling into flesh. Nature's original goths. These are the survivors, not because they outpaced evolution, but because they were already optimized before anyone else even showed up. If it ain't broke, don't grow lungs. Here's the unsettling truth. You are a fish. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, but phylogenetically. Your family tree, vertebrates, jawed vertebrates, lobe-finned fish, tetrapods, mammals. Every feature you brag about, brain, limbs, lungs, selfies, traces back to one fish ancestor who got tired of tide pools. So when someone says fish are dumb, feel free to respond, so is your lineage. We make statues of kings, monuments to presidents, stamps of space robots. But where's the 10-story bronze Tiktaalik? Where's the museum of fish who saved your evolutionary butt? It's time for some overdue appreciation. Fish didn't just leave the water, they built the bridge to every land animal ever carried your DNA in their soggy little bodies, endured every extinction, and invented walking, biting, and being awesome. If there's one thing fish have taught us, it's this. You don't have to be flashy. You just have to show up first, adapt constantly, and never stop swimming. They were the original innovators, the first to try bones, jaws, and paired appendages, the first to test lungs, legs, and life on land, the ones who quietly rewrote the rules of life, while we were still bubbling in the gene pool. And even now, with microplastics, overfishing, and rising seas, they're still here, watching, swimming, judging, and occasionally glowing in the dark for no reason. It's easy to get caught up in tech, titles, and taxes, but deep down, beneath your hoodie and ambition, you're still a vertebrate, a tetrapod, a mammal, a fish with benefits. You are the result of aquatic risk-takers, organisms who flopped, gasped, and crawled their way into the future, so you could one day ride escalators and order coffee with oat milk. The universe didn't hand you consciousness. A fish gave you legs and said, "You take it from here, kid." Ever notice how water calms you? That's memory. That's 500 million years of cellular nostalgia. It's why we soak in tubs, run toward waves, and cry in our bathrooms. We're just homesick for the ocean. And the fish, literal or symbolic, are the threads between what we were and what we pretend to be. Your spine curves like a fish's. Your heart pumps with aquatic rhythm, and when you float, your body remembers. Next time you eat sushi, watch an aquarium, step into a pool yawn and stretch your back like a sea lion, or marvel at a baby learning to walk. Spare a thought for the fish, the ones who bailed first, the ones who got roasted by evolution and still came back stronger, the ones who became everything from birds to billionaires to BuzzFeed listicles. They didn't ask for applause, they just flopped forward and made the future possible. So what have we learned? That evolution is weird, that progress looks like fins turning into fingers, that the ocean may be salty, but it's also full of ancestors, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave your ecosystem and hope you don't die immediately. So the next time someone says you're not built for something, remind them, neither were fish, and look at us now. This has been It All Started With Fish Were the First to Bail on the Ocean. Respect. We'll see you next time. Bring goggles.